We'd like to hear the ocean song again, snap mountain trails that touch the wind, cast her heart down long winding country roads.
Welcome Virtual Photo Walks. My name is Erin, and today I have the pleasure of a special guest. Would you introduce yourself to Virtual Photo Walks?
Yes, I am Scott Stack is my name. I am a Guide 2 supervisor at Hearst Castle. I oversee the accessible program, which is basically our tours for the people with limited mobility. So we're going to actually go over that tour route today, correct?
Exactly.
That's the plan.
Yeah, so Scott is going to act as the guide that you would arrive to if you were on an accessible tour at Hearst Castle, and I am going to be the participant and really just give you all a chance to experience Hearst Castle from the vantage point of what one of our accessible tours looks like. And if you could sum up just in a really quick general way, what's the purpose of our accessible tours here at Hearst Castle?
Well, because of the nature of our hilltop, it makes it difficult to take people with limited mobility around. So we had to create a tour, and this tour basically anybody in a wheelchair, or let's say somebody who can't do any stairs at all. This tour is the one that we take it up as tries to schedule them for. We are required by law to offer some sort of program for people with limited mobility, and this is what we do.
Castle. We are sharing with you the options that we provide for people that are here on site that may not be able to climb stairs and for whatever reason have another mobility issue. This is our accessible tour. But what I think is really fantastic is that we are sharing with you our accessible tour here at Hearst Castle, but what we're doing right now through Virtual Photo Walks is another means where we provide the magic, if you will, of the Enchanted Hill with a community that might not otherwise have a chance to experience it. We'll step away and show you what do you think of our transportation?
Wow. Wheelchair guys.
Yeah, so it comes with here if you want. Scott, go ahead and give us the lowdown of our accessible mobile, if you will.
This is a new vehicle for us. It's much larger than we've had in the past, which is good and bad, which we'll you see as we drive around. We go through some kind of tight spaces. So this vehicle, it rides really nice. It has comfortable seating, has a ramp that we can put one person in a wheelchair in, and we can also carry another wheelchair with us so we can accommodate 2 people at a time that need wheelchair assistance. But we can take more visitors, let's say if they're just slow walkers. But today what I'm going to do, we're going to put Erin in a wheelchair. We're going to drive her around on the route so you can see exactly what the route is like, how it works for a person who is in a wheelchair, who probably can't transfer in or out of a wheelchair, so they can so you can see what that experience would be like. And maybe some of you can come visit us here.
We would love that.
That would be great.
All right. Are we ready to go, everyone?
Let's go. Watch your head.
ADA tours, which is what we call these. The ADA stands for the Americans with Disabilities Act. We are all trained. I actually do these tours as well. We're all trained on how to provide for the most fun and safe riding. We strap everyone in. So as far as I can tell, I'm not going anywhere.
We hope.
We hope.
Hope we got her tied down properly, okay?
But I'll give you an idea. Just look at how many people you could fit. So a lot of times what's really nice with these tours is, there are people that really do want to come and see this place with their family, but they are concerned with whether or not they're going to be able to stand on their feet for an entire hour, or specifically if they are wheelchair bound, being that there are so many stairs, they aren't quite sure if they would be able to make it. And these tours allow them that opportunity. And what's really nice about this is you're seeing all this extra seating here. So you can come and do this with your family.
That's a really nice feature. That's really important that a lot of places don't take into account. Excuse me.
Exactly.
I'm just kind of glad they're not letting you drive.
Oh. Hey. He said that they're just glad they're not he's glad you're not letting me drive.
Boy, yeah, they know something.
Yeah, they've gotten to know me a little bit. Oh, here we go.
All right, so we're at the Roman pool. So they come up on an ADA setup bus. your drop-off room, and we're going to head to go see the outdoor pools, our first stop.
All right. To the terrace. This is the beginning of the tours, this terrace right here, with a view of the ranch. So it's a great place to start the story of Hearst Castle, because as we've talked before, the story of Hearst Castle really starts with the story of the ranch. And we are now just, you know, casually driving by storage jars and wellheads and such that are part of William Hearst Art Collection, and looking down at the Neptune pool to casually go by the back, which I don't think you've seen yet, the back of Casa del Monte. Scott, could you tell us a little bit about what the guests are seeing here?
This is the smallest of the 3 guest houses on the property. It's approximately 2,500 square feet, 4 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, all on that upper level where you see the windows up above. Also has an unfinished basement area. This is the first house that was finished on the property, first one that was occupied or used by William Randolph Hearst, his wife, and his father. So that's a very early day of construction. But we're going to head towards this larger building, which Aaron's going to pull in on the camera. We're going to head towards the back of Casa Grande. This is a much larger house, took much longer to finish, because William Randolph Hearst liked to change his mind, and he kept expanding this project. This is supposed to be a 2-story building. Hard to tell from here, but it's actually a 4-story building. But we're going to drive to the back of that one right now.
As really a camping spot for the Hearst family after George Hearst purchased the land in 1865. And then William Hearst starts to build what is now known as Hearst Castle around the age of 56 years old in the year 1919. But it's a very unique spot because you can really kind of see how this is still a work in progress.
Now the comment, it was one of the guys here was saying that it was good to see the golf cart with which is wheelchair accessible, because most of the guys that we work with have wheelchairs, and a lot of the times,
exactly,
a lot of times, a lot of golf carts don't have, like, they're not wheelchair accessible. So that's good.
You know, to our accessible programming here at Hearst Castle, you know, we not only provide programs through technology with virtual photo walks, but we also are presenting programming to people when they arrive on site to give them a chance to experience this place.
We park at the back of the house because it's the only place that we can access the house with a wheelchair. Every other entrance to the main building, Casa Grande, has stairs, at least one step. So this is the only way we can get into the house. What we do is push through the kitchen. We don't spend a lot of time in there. And then we try to get to the beginning of what is called the Grand Rooms tour route. So you're following almost the exact same tour that other people get to experience and what most of our visitors experience, which is the Grand Rooms tour. So I'm going to head right now into the kitchen. We're going to go through there fairly quickly and try to get to this, what would be more of the beginning of a Grand Rooms tour in the main house, Casa Grande.
Sure.
Nice bread box.
It was finished about 1926. The original plan for the building did not include this kitchen, but William Randolph.
Oh, right there. That's a good shot. Stop.
Your forecaster Cambria in the coastal region.
And just so you know, the reason why we are moving so fast is we're doing exactly what an accessible tour would do, which is go through those rooms, and then we pause here. And this is where we will be pausing and then going back through these other rooms and talking about it. So this is, again, giving you a chance to experience what an accessible tour does.
Wow.
So
we're in the assembly room, which is the main social room in Casa Grande. And our Grand Rooms tour and our accessible tour, for the most part, start here. Now, the Grand Rooms tour, the regular Grand Rooms tour, starts outside, goes by, sees the pool, then walks in this direction, then comes in Italian choir stalls that he purchased and decided to decorate this room with. For him, it's just fancy wainscoting. But these are antiques that he collected and uses them to decorate the rooms, and that's typical of the entire estate. He used his antique collection of all sorts of different types to decorate the rooms. Now, primarily for this particular project, he chose mostly Spanish and Italian art and architecture.
they were here on an accessible tour, on an ADA tour. they're getting a chance to look at all of the art. Maybe why don't we go focus in on those choir stalls you were mentioning?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so again, kind of hard to build a very wide doorway in something that's approximately 500 years old.
Where do the tapestries come from?
The tapestries are Flemish tapestries, but on the long walls, there's 4 tapestries. There's 16th century Flemish tapestries, and they depict the tales of the Roman general Scipio. And these were purchased by William Randolph Hearst after construction began, which is somewhat typical of most things here. They were purchased after construction began. Some things he purchased before. If you want to pan up to the ceiling, the ceiling was purchased in 1909, well before he even knew what he was going to build on this hilltop. So he purchased a 16th century Italian ceiling 10 years before construction even began. He must have stored this in a warehouse. We're not exactly sure where, possibly New York. He just kept making everything up here bigger. And even this ceiling, even though it has very large wood panels, had to be expanded with cast plaster extension work in order to make it fit. There's also some probably other carved wood pieces that were added in order to make it fit in the room. So the room was built first, expanded, and then the ceiling was put in and also expanded to fit.
And that is
incredible ceiling.
It is, and it's a pretty common question we get here on tour, which is, were the rooms made to fit the art, or was the art modified to fit the rooms? And would it be correct, Scott, to say it's the latter, that the art was modified in a lot of ways, including the ceiling, to fit the room that it's being placed in?
This was one of the few rooms that was altered to accommodate art, but in general, the rooms were just concrete boxes that were decorated. And when I say that this room was altered, for whatever reason, Mr. Hearst did not want these very large tapestries to hang over the doorway. Let me go to the doorway. He did not want these tapestries to hang over this doorway, so he expanded the room at each end so that he could move the tapestries over and put a painting of some sort over the door. He decided to expand this room to accommodate the tapestries, which is pretty unusual. Typically, he would just decorate them. But he didn't. Before he expanded the room, he hung the tapestries over the doors, and he didn't like the way it looked. So he made the room bigger so he could put those tapestries in, and then put a painting. He actually changed the paintings a couple times that were over the doorway, which is typical. He constantly changed his mind on this project.
Which is a really interesting point, because I think a lot of people, when they come up here, they maybe are just assuming that he just wanted to have a big house built on top of a mountain, but in many ways, he was a huge part of the design of this home and worked hand in hand with Julia Morgan on almost every decision. And when you look at the telegrams that are between the two of them, you really get a feel for how involved he did want to be. Sometimes even occasionally signing his telegrams with the signature, "Your Architect's Apprentice."
The next large room on Casa Grande, which is the refectory. So this is the dining hall. And this is where all meals were served for the guests. There was no room service here. Mr. Hearst even wrote about that. All meals were to be eaten in the refectory.
Can we show them this piece real quick?
Yeah.
Does everyone want a good laugh?
Okay.
Okay.
Always.
There you go. So this is it's known as a grotesque.
Grotesque, correct.
Yeah.
And I think it is one of the oddest pieces of art that we have here on the hilltop.
Yeah, most people probably they probably walk right by this, because when they walk into a room this large, I'm looking up and at everything else in here. But these are very interesting pieces that Mr. Hearst collected. And why he placed them here, who knows?
But look at how huge this fireplace is.
Yes.
It's just pretty incredible. Scott, if you don't mind, push me near the table. I just want to see that vantage point just from the end of the table, looking down.
Yes, to eat on. You see how narrow the tables are?
Yeah.
See that? And the reason we believe he decided to use this type of table is he liked the fact that it was narrow to incite conversation during dinner. And that's pretty typically the way it was set up, Hearst parties that he had up here were relatively small, 10, 15, maybe 20 people. 20 people probably would have been a lot. Most of the groups up here were relatively small. So this room would easily accommodate the groups that he had up here. And of course, the groups he had up here were movie stars, politicians, all sorts of different types of people. We're going to move further down. Let me give you a close-up of the middle of the table. You can see how the table is set. And you see the ketchup and mustard on the table? Mr. Hearst liked to put the condiments in their original containers right on the table. So for him, you have to realize that this was his ranch at San Simeon, and he wanted to keep things casual. If you can call this dining room casual, when you first walk in, it certainly doesn't look like it, but this would be considered, especially during his time, a casual place setting. There's silver-plated silverware. This is not fine china. It's stoneware that they're using. Paper napkins were common for him to use here. That's glassware, not fine crystal. But he wanted things casual. So casual at the ranch. So this is casual dining in a dining hall that's supposed to look like a religious, like it came from a religious institution, if that makes any sense to you guys.
Yeah, that's quite a dichotomy, if you will.
Yes, to say the least.
Or a trichotomy or a quadrichotomy.
Yeah, that might be better. That might be a better way to put it. Mr. Hearst liked to sit in the middle of the table. Typically, it would be his wife sitting across from him, or it might have been his girlfriend, the movie star Marion Davies, sitting across from him. He separated from his wife in 1926, and after 1926, the hostess here was the movie star Marion Davies. She was a few years younger than William Randolph Hearst, 34 years younger, so just a couple years.
We are moving towards the end of the building, the end of the room, pardon me, so we will pause in just a moment, give you one more vantage point from the other side of the room.
And this is typically where you would be placed if you were on the accessible tour, because we want to stay in front of the group of 56 that would be lining this room. So this would be a typical view. The guide would be standing in the middle of the room, talking, pointing out things, talking about them. Is there anything in this room that interests you?
Oh, yeah.
Does anyone have any questions?
Where did the flags come from, the banners?
The flags are copies of polio flags that would have originally come from Siena, Italy, where they hold twice a year, they still do this, they hold a horse race and religious festival in the hilltop town.
Oh, and they do the flag. Oh, yes. I know what you're talking about.
The flags represent the neighborhoods or districts in Siena. And so whatever horse wins the race, the rider does not need to remain on the horse in order for the horse to win. Whatever horse crosses the finish line first, and that flag would be associated with that horse, that flag would be flown in the town of Siena until the next polio festival.
And speaking of impressive ceilings, we're gonna all look up for a moment, because this one is pretty incredible. They actually all really are, but this one, many of the panels above us are depicting various saints.
So they're hand-carved wood saints. It's a 16th century Renaissance style ceiling. Not the original ceiling that Hearst wanted to put in this room. This room is more Gothic in style than the first room we're in, the assembly room. This room calls for an arched ceiling. Mr. Hearst couldn't find one appropriate ceiling for this room, so they put this one in instead. I don't think most of us would notice that this would be an inappropriate ceiling for this room, but we weren't Mr. Hearst, and we did not have his same eye view of this place. We think the banners were put in here for one thing to add color to the room. It's also to draw your eye up, to give this, even though the ceiling is flat, because of the angle that the flags are at, it kind of makes the room seem a little bit arched. So we believe, since he couldn't find the proper arched ceiling for this room, he put the flags in to draw your eyes up and continue with a Gothic look, because the fireplace, the mantle is definitely Gothic in style. I don't know if you want to pan on the choir stalls.
Yeah.
The choir stalls in this room are much taller than they were in the previous room. They also have the Gothic arch. Can you see that at the top?
Right here.
Yes. So he's trying to get this Gothic theme to this particular room. So he's got the Gothic choir stalls, he's got the Gothic mantelpiece, and then I think he put the flags in at that angle and with the color to kind of give you an arched look to the room.
And whether or not there's any validity in this for their purpose of why they put them in here, but you know, many people think of Gothic buildings as having stained glass windows as well. You know, that's a Gothic church is usually kind of known for not just its high arch ceilings, but stained glass windows. And in this case, these banners really do kind of provide color that you might normally expect to see in a stained glass window, but that were not installed in this room.
Yeah, and Hearst chose clear glass for the windows in this room. He owned lots of stained glass. He collected stained glass. He certainly could have put stained glass in these windows, but he chose clear windows because he wanted, and a quote from him was, he wanted the stars at night to look in to see what all the ruckus was about while they were dining. That was paraphrasing, but that's basically what he said. So he wanted the stars at night he wanted the guests to be able to look through the windows and see the stars at night.
It's interesting.
But stained glass, getting that feel of stained glass by putting the flags in as well.
That's clever.
Even though he wanted this place to look medieval, Renaissance, Gothic, he also wanted electric lights everywhere. He wanted modern plumbing everywhere. The kitchen that we walked through earlier was as modern as it could have been for the time period. So high tech was important to him, but yeah, he certainly would have had a Wi-Fi here. So this room is the billiard room or game room. You can see the two billiard tables that are in here. And it was also decorated with things that would give it a game room theme. That large tapestry on the wall is called The Hunt of the Stag. So it's a stag hunt tapestry depicting a stag hunt, which goes along with the theme of this room, which is a game room. There's also some tiles on the wall that are Persian tiles. It would have been from Iran. They also depict sultans and sultanas playing painting. And
Scott, would you mind? Because I love this piece here. Would you push us a little bit closer to
absolutely.
it? Because, you know, when I'm in this room, one of the things that I share with the guests when you're in here is just that idea that art tells stories. And yeah, I had no clue before working here how sultans or sultanas dressed or how they danced or what kind of musical instruments they played. But I'll get you guys a little bit closer here. Look at what this art allows you a chance to experience.
There we go. Yes.
Here, you have two completely different areas of the world, two completely different time periods, and yet we are getting to kind of go back in time in both. You know, this is a Flemish tapestry, so Northern Europe from about 500 to 600 years ago, and the area near and around Iran, the Qajar dynasty, approximately 250 years ago. And it's both of these pieces are depicting what life was like back then. Sorry, I just had to interject that one.
No, don't apologize, please. That's what we like.
And then going up here, you have a completely restored Spanish ceiling. This Spanish ceiling is approximately 600 years old. And when I say restored, meaning that when William Hearst purchased it, it would have been covered. It would have had a more thicker layer of dirt and ash and soot and whatever else had coated it over, 450, 500 years. And so we have completely restored this ceiling, peeling off the layers of the dirt and the ash and the soot and whatever else had adhered itself to the paint. How long did that project take us, Scott?
Well, it went on for 5 years, believe it or not. I've been slowly cleaning.
Wow.
Yeah, so in this room, in and out, over time was scaffolding that had to be moved around, and the tours had to work around the scaffolding.
But it's amazing because think of all the different cultures we just talked about. So Northern Europe, I'm just going to use my magic pointer finger here. Northern Europe, approximately 500 to 600 years old. Spain, 600 years old. Qajar dynasty, 250 years old. And then just throw in a French jewelry box.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
Here, let's get you close. This is amazing too. It's approximately 400 years old. And if you look closely, in a lot of ways, what you're seeing depicted on here are maybe some figures you are familiar with from Greek and Roman mythology. But doesn't it almost look like that piece of art was done with a computer or something? It's just so detailed. The colors are so vibrant. From what I know about this, and maybe Scott might have more, but I know that it was painted. It's wood and painted on enamel. Is what I remember.
Yeah, I don't know about any metal on there. I think all the work, some of it can look like metal, like here. That's actually enamel. That's all enamel. As you get closer to it, you might be able to see that. But
and then the pictures are enamel also?
These are enamel, correct. We're going to go through our narrowest doorway.
Oh, my.
Squeezing through.
Exactly as you would see things from an ADA accessible tour at Hearst Castle. We are currently in the movie theater. This is the movie theater where guests and staff alike were invited to watch a movie that was shown on most evenings. A lot of these movies were new releases. They would be driven up from Hollywood.
So this room was supposed to look like a Art Deco movie palace, like you would have seen, let's say, in Los Angeles or New York or Chicago during the early 1920s. And what is made from cast plaster this is from Greek mythology. These are called caryatids, and these are women who were destined to support the structure for the rest of their lives in Greek mythology. So you can see sitting on the top of their head they're pushing up a corbel that it looks like it's supporting the roof. Now these are purely decorative here, but in Greek mythology there's a whole tale about the caryatid. If you're interested more, I would look it up, and you can Google it. It's a good thing to Google. It's pretty interesting. But these were designed by the architect Julian Morgan specifically for this room. They're made of cast plaster. They've been painted and they're gilded. Gilded meaning gold leaf has been applied to them.
Wow.
Like we've talked about, if it looks like gold, it's gold. Rooms tour. But then your ADA guide, the person that drove you up in the cart to the house earlier, they come and join you again after the movie theater, and they bring you back out into the gardens towards the front of the house, since you haven't had an opportunity to see that portion of the house yet. And then they give you the option of spending some time in the gardens by yourself with your family. Okay, here's the real test. How much does Scott like me? Oh, okay, he let me make it.
I'll even lock her in place so she doesn't roll away.
Whoa!
So we exited the theater. We're now heading out to the front of the main house, Casa Grande, just to give you a view of that.
Yeah, one of the nice treats with getting to give these presentations to VirtualPhotoWalks, as many of them are done first thing in the morning. So we all are a little bit spoiled because we get a chance to see this place without, the hundreds
of other people, yeah.
Yes. The Grand Rooms tour that they joined inside the house, that Grand Rooms tour has already walked up the stairs and stood on this main terrace. So what we do with our accessible tours is we bring them here after the tour is over and give them the chance to see the front of the facade of Casa Grande, but also to kind of give them the same information that the other Grand Rooms tour had already received, just about the design.
Monasteries, dining hall, he wanted that. So that's just following the whole theme of the main house, Casa Grande, which church on the outside decorated with church pieces, same thing on the inside. So he really wanted this to look like a church. Now, the original plan, though, this was based on a church in Ronda, Spain that had one bell tower. Now, obviously, you see two bell towers here, but the original plan here was a two-story building with one bell tower. That got scrapped fairly early on. He decided to add a third floor, two bell towers, and then he decided to add a fourth floor, so the bell towers were expanded. So just constant changes to this project.
Are there any bells?
Yes, there's bells in each tower, 18 bells in each tower.
18?
18 in each bell tower. Yes, 36 total. They were commissioned by William Randolph Hearst, and he definitely wanted carillon bells from Belgium for his.
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
You forgot about the bells?
I forgot about the carillon. Yeah. Do people come up and play?
There's an electronic keyboard that controls it. I don't know if anybody knows.
Oh, they don't have the old mechanical?
Well, you could still play it, the 36 keys, but I don't know if there's anybody here anymore that knows how to do that. So it is connected to actually an MP3 player at this point. So certain songs can be played on it. The bells are rung by electronic clappers, and they have been the same clappers that were put on there by William Randolph Hearst's people.
We're going to roll to the middle of the main terrace now and just give you a quick look at the front yard and the backyard. Into focus down over here. But it is kind of cool to see the difference between the bright blue skies.
Oops, sorry about that. I was trying to keep out of the sun.
Looks like a painting.
So you may be able to make out San Simeon Bay down here.
Mm-hmm.
You see the cove down there? Can you see it a little bit?
Yep.
Okay. It's definitely, the marine layer is definitely lifting, because earlier this morning you couldn't see much of that.
Mm-hmm. And this, I'm just going to, because I don't believe we'll take you around today, definitely on our next virtual photo walks, maybe we can make this a twofold experience. You've gotten to see the inside component of our accessible tours here. The outside component of the tour is where this esplanade, this flat surface, flat walkway, actually does a big loop, quarter of a mile all the way around the property. And what we do after the inside component of the tour is we bring our guests out here to the main terrace. We share with them more information about the facade, about some of the art, about the architecture, and then we give them the option, if they'd like, to go spend some time on their own on the esplanade doing a loop of the gardens, because this is all flat, so they don't have to be concerned with navigating any stairs.
So if they're able, they can self-guide the esplanade.
Mm-hmm. And which is really nice, again, because a lot of people do come up here with their families, and they will take the ADA tour where they are able to take the car and avoid the stairs, and some of their family will join them. And then they're meeting some other family members on the Grand Rooms tour, and then afterward, everybody gets to walk around the gardens together as a family.
That's nice just to get to hang out.
Exactly.
And sometimes the guide may walk around the esplanade with you. They may let you go on your own if that's what you choose. But if you prefer the guide to walk with you around the esplanade, that's also available.
Definitely, yeah. It's kind of your choice. I know, that some people want to have a little bit of time to experience it on their own.
So now we're heading back to where we parked the cart at the back of Casa Grande in the east courtyard, and we're walking around what is called the north wing, and that's where the movie theater is. We just exited right here,
Mm-hmm.
and now we're walking around to the back.
Yeah, good morning, guys.
Hello.
Scott, you've done a great job for your first virtual photo walks. But yes,
Until I just push her down this hill and let her go.
What do you think? No. So well.
By accident, it wouldn't be a purpose. Oh, there she goes.
This kind of tour for the disabled from coming up from down the hill and all included.
In theory, you can, when we let you self-guide, you can self-guide as long as you want. The problem is we do have certain times where the bus will be able to pick you up. So you could be up here for an hour, you could be up here for 2 hours, you could be up here for 75 minutes. It all depends on what you're able to do, what you want to do, and the timing, working that out with the guide who's taking you on the tour.
Okay.
Now, the inside portion is about 45 minutes, and that's be pretty standard because you're going to be normally following a regular Grand Rooms tour in the house. They spend about 40 minutes, 35 minutes in the house. So that's pretty standard, but the outside portion can be varied to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
And we try to accommodate them as best they can. But yeah, most people, after about an hour and a half, they're usually ready to go. It just depends. But we don't put a restriction. We don't say you have to be out of here in 60 minutes.
Right.
So we try to make it, because everybody else who comes up here on a tour gets to self-guide as long as they want once their tour is over. So we offer that to our people with limited mobility as well.
But can I answer any other questions for you or any comments?
just really appreciate that folks go to this, make the effort to do this, because it means so much for people to be able to get somewhere.
Exactly. And I'm glad you feel that way, because that is exactly why we provide these tours, is to give everybody a chance to experience this place. Very difficult, and that's where I will say thank you to John and to VirtualPhotoWalks. Last week we did a virtual photo walk from the 3rd floor of Casa Grande, and that allowed a whole lot of people that otherwise would never have been able to see that area of the house. Okay, well there's Scott.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care, everybody.